And I wanted to create this video to show you how you should approach your literature review, things that you should look for in your search, ways to search, and so forth and so on. So I wanted to begin by just taking a look at your paper quickly. And at the last paragraph of your literature review, which, by the way, one of the comments I had was you didn't have much substance here. So you essentially have about 5 paragraphs, 4 or 5 paragraphs. And what you're trying to say here is you're trying to look at what leads to small business success. And in your paper, you're looking at 2 different skills. So there's leadership skills and customer service skills. So let's take a look at the leadership skills. And what you're saying here in this paragraph that really stood out to me, you say in leadership skills, there are not just one, but a number of them. So I was thinking about that. And you also say communication, supervising, even experiences that they gain through the years. So you're saying that these are leadership skills that contribute to small business success. But you have to expand on that. Tell the reader what about communication. Is it a certain type of communication that's better for small business success? Is there certain communication that will lead to small business failure? So we really want to expand upon that concept a little bit. So if I'm just looking at leadership skills and I'm just looking at communication, let's go out to Macmillan Library. We want to pull up the ProQuest database. And again, we're looking at leadership skills, and we're looking at communication. So go ahead and do a search, type in small business success, leadership, communication. So that should be enough keywords to be able to get you some kind of results, because you want to know about small business success, you want to know about leadership, and you want to know about communication. So go ahead and start the search. And what you'll want to do now is to kind of search down here, because it's going to highlight these keywords for you, and find where it talks about communication. So nothing here in these first 3. Okay, so we have something here. We have communication right here. So let's take a look at this. This is going to be a dissertation. And if we scroll down to the table of contents, so you're going to have your introduction. There's going to be a few pages of introduction. And then here's the literature review. Begins on page 36. And it runs to 83. So that's about 50 pages. So I just wanted you to see the difference. Of course, I don't want you to write like you're writing a dissertation. I'm not expecting 50 pages of a literature review from you, but I need more than just 5 paragraphs. So let's start by scrolling down just to the introduction and see what this researcher says about communication when it comes to leadership success. And what you can even do here is you can do a Control F, look for communication, and see how many instances. So it looks like there's 382 instances. So let me scroll through. Okay, we want to be out of the abstract and into the chapter. So let's see what she says about communication. So small business leaders are unable to achieve effective communication practices beyond the initial stages of the business life cycle. So basically, she's looking at research that says communication is hard after the first 5 years. And down here, the lack of employment opportunities reflects a non-cohesive alignment between small business leaders and followers' dialogic communication effectiveness. That's probably not something you'll need. Small business leaders' inability to experience effective communication practices stem from ineffective dialogic communication and an inability to think innovatively. Communication effectiveness between members and leaders is crucial to improving the performance of small business. I like this. So these are 2 studies that you could probably look at. And what I would do is I would take this, copy it, bring it over to a Word document, and paste it. So this is telling you, I wanted to pull in that number 2. Hang on a minute. Let me see what's going on here. Communication effectiveness. Let's get this. I don't know why I pulled that through. So communication effectiveness between members and leaders. So this is saying between the leaders and employees is crucial to improving the performance of small business. That's something you can say in your paper. Of course, not in those words. You're going to have to reword it. But I would go out to these 2 studies and see what it says about communication effectiveness. And you can cite these. You can cite them together like this person did. You could separate them. You might be able to pull out wording from these 2 studies that could give you 2 different sentences about communication effectiveness. But this is a good starting point, looking at these dissertations and seeing what other people have written on these topics. Okay, so let's see what else we can pull up. According to Gane and Gane, leadership is a catalyst to effective communication that initiates network relationships among small business stakeholders. So this is basically saying that there was a study by Gane and Gane in 2009 that says leadership helps effective communication, and that also initiates network relationships. May or may not be something you want to include. I think I'm going to skip it for now. Shifts in behavior lead toward effective communication practices beyond the initial stages. I don't think we need that. Breaking out of the container of small business leaders' failure describes what sustainability is and how effective communication practices reflect successful leadership. This might be something I would pull, this study here. So I would pull how effective communication practices reflect successful leadership. There might be something in this study you can use. So I would pull this over and keep that as a reference. So they say BO is breaking out is the communications process by which the manifestation of systems thinking coupled with the process, that's probably not something we'll need. To achieve effective communication practices. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going through here, I'm looking for instances of communication as it relates to leadership and anything that's cited and pulling out these citations. So now we have these citations, Alexander and Buckingham. I'll go to this paper because now we're at the end of her introduction. We don't really need anything on the background. You might want to come down to her literature review just to see quickly if there's anything you can use. Because this is sort of an interesting study and it may not give you much information that you can use. Let's see, where was it? It was like page 30 something or other, I thought. So she defines her terms. What else? I'm sorry, all this scrolling is going on. Okay, here's our literature review. So she starts with the purpose of the study was to explore perceptions of small business leaders' active dialogical communication practices beyond the initial stages of the business life cycle. Documentation, not really sure what that section would be about. Okay, so now she's like framing her theory. So this might not fit well into, because she's talking about theory here, this might not fit well because your study's more of an applied research and not a theoretical research. So this may not be something that you need. Systems thinking. We want to know about communication, how that contributes to small business success. So if you want to, you can go through this. I'm really not in the essence of time, but I am going to get down to the end of this paper, to her citations, because this is going to be helpful for you to look up these studies to see what these researchers say about communication and how it contributes to small business success, and in particular, leadership communication. So I believe this was the one, Alexander and Buckingham, 2011. Here it is. So I'm going to pull this in. And then Forey, 2012. Forey, 2012. Why can't I pull that? Oh no, it brought me out to the paper. I don't want that. I want to just highlight it. Oh gosh darn it. All right, where are we now? Forey, 2012. Here we are. Okay. So if you wanted to go ahead and click on this link, it'll bring you out to the study. But I'm just bringing them in here for the sake of brevity. And then Kataria and Kataria Garg, 2013. Here it is. All right, so now you have your citations, and you might want to differentiate this a little bit so that you're not getting what you pulled out of the paper and the citations confused. And then before I go on to another dissertation, I probably would grab the title of this one so you know which one that it's really good to keep good records of the information. Oh, here it is up here. So you can look this up again if you needed to. Okay, so those were the two sentences you pulled out of the paper and the links to the original studies, because I think it's always good to go back to the original study and see what they said and if you could use anything. So basically that's what you're doing. You're going through, you're trying to look at these dissertations or other research papers and find out what you can use to pull into your paper. Okay, so that was this one here, because we saw communication. Now let's look down. Nothing there, nothing there. This has communication in it. Let's take a peek, see what's going on with this dissertation. Okay, so we'll get to the start. Leadership communication is a critical element in enhancing organizational performance. The relationship that employees develop at their workplace and the leaders and coworkers represent social exchange relationships. Let's go ahead and cue for communication again. I want something in the paper. Why is it not showing me what's in the paper? Oh, there we go. And I don't want the abstract. I want to get down to the actual introduction where the paper begins. All right. So the communication efficiency of leaders in an organization can help or hurt operations. The effectiveness of organizational communication is determined by leadership and leadership traits that allow for an open path of communication with employee and organization. Finding an effective style of communication that promotes employee productivity has long been a challenge. Transactional and transformational leadership styles have been compared. The communication culture of the organization is directly influenced by the leadership and management style within the organization. Interesting. Okay, so we didn't get very much here. Let's go down to the literature review. Okay. Leadership effects on organizational communication and performance have been a topic for over 30 years. Organizations, by its most basic definitions, okay, so she's defining organizations. Organizational theory provides an interdisciplinary focus. Defining rewards and goals. Looking, just kind of scanning for communication. Communication delivery from leaders to employees must fit the organization to be successful. And the other thing I'm looking for communication, but also a citation as well, because we don't want to take really the words of this person, because this is still in a form of before the research. So it's just good to look for these citations as well. And I do want you to notice that I've caught a couple of errors in this dissertation already. One of them is this is not formatted for APA because this would have been before the period, like it is down here. So I have caught a few errors. So let's see what it says here. Communication employees. Effective communication is needed to sustain a competitive advantage. That could be something that you could use. And there's 2 studies here. One of them is a little bit older. That might be, and I'm pretty sure it is because I know this researcher here, Aviolio, is pretty much a staple name in leadership research. So this is probably a foundational study which you can use, even though it's a little bit older. So you could probably grab this because this is basically supporting what you're saying, that effective communication is going to lead to small business success. So you can use that. We'll take that, we'll bring that over here to where we're keeping our notes. And then we want to go back to the paper. So effective communication succeeds when employees support the leader and the organization. If there's a belief that employees' efforts will be rewarded, leadership succeeds when initiating a response or responding to change. Constituents will become willingly involved to the extent that they believe in those sponsoring the change. So again, I'm just looking for aspects of communication. How a leader communicates is as important as how he leads. The leader is the guiding force within an organization. A leadership style that resonates with followers will allow the leader to achieve greater employee productivity. Conversely, poor leadership styles lead to poor communication and can have a negative impact on productivity. A recent Gallup study found poorly managed work groups are on average 50% less productive and 44% less profitable than well-managed groups. So that's really more talking about management than it is supporting communication. We want something that supports communication. So here's communication and leadership. Leadership behaviors affect employee productivity and organizational communication. Model of leadership behaviors is generated from research and case studies of people's personal best leadership experiences. 5 distinct practices which outstanding leaders use to affect employee and organizational performance, extrapolated from the research. So we want to know about communication. The effectiveness of transformation lies in the ability to appeal to social values, encourage people to communicate and collaborate. Interesting. So then we get into leadership theory. So basically that's what you're going to do. Rather than hold you up and just, because this is how you have to do this. This is how you have to research it. You've just got to get into these papers and go through them and make sure that you can find information that you can use in your study. So here I took out, this is the, oh, I forgot to go down and get the citation. You'll want to get the citation for these two from this paper. But you want to go out to these original studies, see what they say about communication, find little snippets in these papers that can help you to support the fact that you're saying communication is a leadership skill that's going to lead to small business success. Hammer down on that and make sure that you stay on topic. And then just put these into your paper. You know, this is what the current research says. That's what you're trying to do for the reader. You're connecting the dots for them. You're telling them this, I've looked at the research and this is what the research says about communication as a leadership skill that will contribute to small business success. And I find that from time to time, you can get off topic. You have to really stay focused and narrow. Make sure that you are focusing on those three things: leadership skills, communication, small business success, and then pull this stuff out and put it into your paper. So I hope that makes sense for you. And I do want you to see when you go through and you look at these studies that they have pages and pages and pages of research that they've looked at and they're pulling it into their paper. Again, I don't want you to have 20, 30 pages, but if you can get to maybe 3 pages, 4 pages, I'd be really happy to really support these different aspects. You want to do this for communication. You said supervising. So you want to do this for supervising. You say experiences, do this for whatever you mean by experiences, but you have to be really, really specific to your reader and tell them. Because if I want to be successful in small business and I'm reading your paper, I want to know, what do I need to do with communication? Communicate more, communicate less? Is there bad communication? You know, what about communication is so important that it leads to small business success? So you want to do that there. And then do the same thing for customer service. You say customer service leads to small business success. Well, what about customer service? But you've got to support all this. You can't just make these claims without having research to back it up. And also when you go in and look at these papers, see how they're using these citations. Like, I like how you did this here. Moore explains that good leadership. So you're doing a paraphrase rather than a direct quote, which is what I want you to do. I want you to do less direct quote and more paraphrasing. And also look at my comments over here, because the paper that you just recently turned into me, you didn't make any changes or the changes that I suggested, because here I'm taking my time to, say remove this word, add this word. So go through and make sure that you're looking at what I'm having you take out and the reasons why. So this was the paper that you submitted to me, or I looked at on September 25th. Go back to this version of the paper. I think that you were on a better path than the one that you just submitted to me. So I want you to beef up this literature review section. That's what you should be working on now. You're going to be taking your time going through this research and trying to find what you can pull out of other people's papers and put into yours. And again, do not use these word for word. You're going to have to change the wording. You're going to have to put it into your own words, and you're going to have to go out to these studies and find out what exactly they say. There might be something in these studies that you can pull in as well. So this is a really good starting point for you. All right, well, let me know when you've made some progress on this and send it over to me and I'll take a look at it.